Can you walk us through why you decided to do this rebranding?
We realized we wanted to be different, and it was definitely taking away the chateau from the label.
She is Julia Lindholm, CEO of Château Malherbes, a small winery in the heart of Bordeaux. Now, Julia realized something really simple. If you want to stand out in the crowded world of wine, you need to do something completely different. So, Château Malherbes is not just a winery, it's a spa, it's a restaurant, it's a hotel, it's a complete wine tourism project. And Julia is also investing a lot on social media as the first brand ambassador of the winery.
No and low alcohol, let's say trend. Maybe trend is not the right word.
Interesting that you're saying that it's not a trend. Everything in our world is a trend. No alcohol wine is not a wine. It's a new beverage, and it's a different beverage. I think a lot of Gen Zs, they have a fear of being stupid about something. Maybe you're gonna get a bad bottle, and as soon as they're gonna get the bad bottle, they're gonna be like, oh no, I hate wine.
Hey Julia, welcome on Dolia Talks.
Hi Giovanni, thank you for having me.
So usually there's a question I ask to every guest at the end of the podcast, which is, you wake up tomorrow and you inherited a winery. Which are the first three things you do? I guess in your case, we can do it as the first question, because I think it's a bit of your story. You didn't inherit it in the strict sense of the word, but actually I think it's pretty interesting. So can you tell us a bit the story of how you got to work into the chateau, because I think it's pretty interesting.
Of course, I mean, beautiful question to ask someone, and I have a wave of thoughts and everything coming to my mind because, yes, I've been doing that personally for the past 5 years. You can say that I was always surrounded by wine. My family is not actually from wine, but we are wine lovers. Some can say wine connoisseurs. And so my father, from the age when I could actually start drinking and understanding wine, has been actually giving me wine, and not just like, oh, here you drink, but you actually talk about, you actually take a moment to understand what you're drinking, why you're drinking it. And at our tables, it was never just a drink to have. It was always something that brought people together, that actually created this moment of meaning. So since then, I was always kind of surrounded by that. And I was in politics before. I studied to maybe become a diplomat or a president or something. I decided against it, and I went into hospitality business. So there I got my first proper education in wine and realized, okay, well, there's way more to it than I've ever thought, and it's a beautiful world. So once I actually got an opportunity to come here to Bordeaux and start working in wine, at first, once again, you come as a non-wine professional. I come as a young girl, freshly educated, but not knowing much about the real world. And of course, at first it was quite challenging because you come not into some kind of open-minded and easy, let's say, region or easy community. You come into something that's been here for ages, for generations, into an industry that's also been there for thousands of years. And you come as this, open-minded person with so many ideas, so many things that you want to implement and to show, and you get humbled very quickly because there's already so many existing codes, traditions, and systems. So, coming in, I realized, okay, I can bring a lot of things, but also I need to learn. I need to stay open-minded, but, aware of things that have already been created, and just to see how I can optimize it in the best way possible.
Okay, so you get into this, you said centuries old industry, centuries old wine region. And so what happens? Because also the chateau, you were telling me, it has a couple of centuries old institution, no? So actually, let me do the question. What were the first three things you did as soon as you got into the chateau?
So just to answer the question, yes, the chateau is from the 14th century, and it was taken over by my family in 2014. And I only came in 2021. So at that point, we already had the construction going on. So obviously some things were already set into motion. So when I arrived, for me, was okay, so we have a beautiful chateau, we have a winery, a new modern winery that is in the making too. We are in a small appellation called Château de Bordeaux. We are in Bordeaux. So I took, all the facts that I had and I tried to understand how, firstly, I could help in this situation, what I could bring. But at the same time, it was, a moment of trying to connect yourself with the place and also to see and to feel the identity of the chateau. Because, obviously it's been there for centuries. But, when we came here, it was with an idea of creating something great, but at the same time you needed to see this unrealized potential of the place, of this, we call it a little gem, if I can say so myself. It's a beautiful property, it's a beautiful chateau. It's also about 15 minutes away from the Bordeaux city center. We actually, from the terrace of the chateau, we can see the river and the city. So straight away you get those ideas. So you do want to stay in this beautiful tradition of the chateau, that's 14th century. At the same time, we're new, we're modern, we're young, we're global, and we wanted to create something more modern. So the first question, how do you connect the modernity and the tradition? And that's what a lot of chateaus will be asking themselves today, and they have already started the work. And then obviously it's the connection of the countryside and the city. So it's like rural versus urban. So you're also trying to understand how do you link that. And so I think it's a very long and specific process of understanding the identity of the place first, obviously understanding what you can work with. But for me also, it was not just from the perspective of the CEO, it was with of the perspective from the family. So you think about, like the tradition, you think about the legacy, you think about all of those things on top of, all the other surrounding, let's say, factors.
And you mentioned you went through this restructuring and also rebranding process.
Yes.
And actually now you have some, like, your labels look different than they looked before. So can you walk us through why you decided to do this rebranding? So can you walk us through that process, why you thought it was necessary, and how did it work for you, this rebranding and restructuring process?
Of course. So when we came here, when we saw the property, the wine has already been produced, and the previous producer, they had a collection of several bottles. I think there were about 6 different bottles from what I remember. They had different labels, they were trying to do the rebranding too. And for us, when we tasted the wines, when we saw the property, there was, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's important, there was this unrealized potential. When you see the place and you understand that there is something that is not yet realized and there is something yet more to do. And with that in mind, we started building the possibility of that happening. So apart from being a winery and, apart from having vineyards, the chateau was also and is still in the process of becoming a boutique hotel. There's also going to be a restaurant nearby and a spa. So the whole thing was planned as a big wine tourism project. Of course, with the wine as our blood, if we can say that. So always it's the wine first, it's the product first. This is what brought us here. This is what our passion is about. But we understood that this place required to be seen, to be noticed. And how do you do that in a world that is swamped with, like different wines, different producers, lots of news, lots of information. So how do you, again, once again, define yourself? How, once again, you try to show people what you did, what you do, and you do it for them. So for us, we were always heavily hospitality driven. So for us, we realized, okay, so now we need to create a brand. It's not just, the wine. It's not just the hotel. It's not just the restaurant. It's not just winery. It is a full package that you're getting when you're getting a brand. And we realized we wanted, once again, to be different. We wanted to identify ourselves as a new player, as someone who is bringing, a breath of fresh air, new fresh air to Bordeaux. And that's kind of brought the idea of rebranding and creating something new. And in our case, it was definitely taking away the chateau from the label because we wanted, and although there were some studies that actually, if you have a chateau on your label, people perceive it as something more luxurious and they are ready to
Oh,
pay more for them. So
okay.
for us, it was more like, okay, we are not doing, let's call it old style marketing. We're gonna just do something very innovative. We're gonna just be brave or crazy, whatever you call it. We just want to, to do something that works on an emotional level. So you see the label, there's not a lot of information there, but you can see that it's very minimalistic and it's quite aesthetic, and you're just getting the first initial feeling. Once again, it's not for everyone. I've heard lots of different opinions on our labels. People saying that some don't understand that. Some of them are saying, when I'm not gonna try to get this bottle. And others who are actually trying our wine because they saw the label and they were like, wow, it spoke to me. So this is where we realize properly that we're a niche. We're a small production. We produce around 60,000 bottles per year on a good year. So we don't want to work for a mass market. We're working for a niche community that we are actually trying to fully understand and to connect with.
And I'm curious about your. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but we'll start from the hospitality part you mentioned.
Sure, sure.
I'm curious from a customer journey perspective. So, where do you think this hospitality investment is linked to your customer journey? Because usually, if I think of customer journey of other wine brands, usually maybe you go to a supermarket, you go to a restaurant, you taste them, and then maybe you decide, okay, I like this. When I go back home, I would buy a couple of bottles. Do you think this investment in hospitality and this focus on hospitality changes actually the customer journey? So do you think they will become actually a discovery engine for you, or does it have another focus?
100%. This is for us a way to connect people with the world of Malherbe. Because once you come to a place, once you feel I'm going to be very romantic here. Once you touch the soil, once you scent the air, once you feel, I don't know, the rain or anything, the sun of this place, we are human beings. We are emotional creatures. Although we're surrounded by, technology, we're surrounded by artificial intelligence coming into the way, but we're still human beings. We're still coming from the earth and we're living on the earth. So those are things that are so important. They're intangible, but super important. And that's what people, tend to forget. So once you come here, you can see this in the eyes of people. They understand it. No questions asked, no explanation needed. Obviously, we do that and we educate people a lot, but in a sense of, you feel the connection straight away. Imagine obviously going, as you were saying, just to a supermarket somewhere in Hong Kong and getting our wine just, somewhere in the supermarket. And you're going to try to read it on the label. You're going to try to kind of connect somehow with it. And, people who are actually curious, they're going to go and try to find us online on our social media and connect with us through that. But when they come here, obviously it's a completely different experience. And a lot of our guests, they're walking out with, a bottle of wine, and we have beautiful reviews and we get repeated orders, because once they actually taste the wine, they understand the quality and they remember those beautiful emotions that they have lived on site, and they just come back to us. So for us, it's one of the pillars actually of, our, let's say, existence as a brand, of people being able to come to connect. And if they're not able to come physically, we can actually, make you travel through social media. And this is where we're trying right now to really, really evolve. So when you come on any of our pages, you will feel, at home. You will feel like you're in somebody's home. And if you want to come, you're more than welcome. And, we are happy for you to experience our world.
Let's say you're on social media. So you're quite active on Instagram. I saw you personally are quite active on LinkedIn. So can you can you walk us through a bit your overall strategy on social media? How does it work, and also the results you're seeing from these activities?
Well, social media is our voice and a place where we want to transfer our values and our identity and our brand. Because once again, people need to connect to something, to someone. And that's one of the things that we are exploring with my social media team right now, is that we're seeing that people are way more responsive towards humans. As you can see in any, like personal brands and influencers, it's all about, okay, show us the people, show us what's happening. And also, there's so many wine producers, all of us more or less, we have the same processes, we have the same, things that we need to start making the wine, and then, all the different steps that go into the winemaking, etc. So here, what they're asking for is, okay, give us something that defines you, give us something that we can connect to. And most of the time, it's actually, a person. And I was speaking to lots of different brands too, and that's why the notion of brand ambassador, this is where it goes in. So for us, social media today is something that helps us to create a community, whether it be a local community or global community. Obviously, a big question of language, because we are a French producer and we speak French, and French customers, they want you to speak French, but at the same time, you have your international consumers too that you want to touch and you want to interact with them. So this is a big question, because you have all those translation tools, but it's still, you lose things in translation. And when you speak to someone, they feel that you speak to them specifically. So today, what we're trying to see is that, for our local market, people are a bit different. They perceive things differently too. So they're going to think more, maybe a little bit more about the price, for example. But here we're trying to create local communities. So we're going to talk about our activities, what kind of things we're doing, maybe some parties on our beautiful terrace, or some local events for Christmas, inviting local artisanal, cheesemakers and other producers. So here's how we talk to the local community. But to the international community, we understood that since it's more difficult to come to France and be here physically, we need to create a better connection. And that would be through a human being. And hence, I'm more active on LinkedIn. Firstly, because I actually love sharing, this. I love talking about this. So again, thank you for inviting me, because it gives me an opportunity to do that. But it's also, to be able to link people back to wine and speak maybe to someone who is closer to me in terms of age or experience or anything else. People understand that, okay, well, if she is linked to that, so maybe I can get into that too, because the world of wine is a very intimidating place. People are, sometimes scared to look stupid, sound stupid. We all are. So here we are trying to demystify the world of wine and show that it's actually quite welcoming if you want it to be.
Is there some type of content or specific channel that you see is working better for this kind of communication?
So for now, we are focusing on LinkedIn, but obviously it's more for a professional world. So when we're talking about B2B, obviously, this is what's going to work a lot, and I can talk a bit more about B2B, B2C later. But when we're talking about direct consumers, I think it's always going to be social media like Instagram and Facebook, which is also a big question, because, my generation, I don't really use Facebook anymore. I'm mostly on Instagram. So how, like, again, where do you kind of interact with your target market? So for us, it's a little bit of both. But since, Instagram is, I think it's taking a bit more attention to itself. So we're going to focus on that and probably maybe create a brand ambassador page on Instagram and try
Okay.
to talk to our consumers through that.
When you say brand ambassador, you mean having some like influencers sponsoring your content, or do you have something more specific in mind?
Yes, I have something very specific in mind.
Okay.
It's probably gonna be me.
Wow, I love it. Okay.
Because I think it's just, for me, people are not stupid and consumers are not stupid, and they're gonna feel when something is made because of, because of financial gains, or something is made with some other interest in mind. So when, I am being very sincere talking about my love for wine, at the same time I am, from the family. I am on site almost every day. So I think people are going to be able to connect way quicker to that. And who is, a better fit to actually transfer the emotion and the values behind the brand that people that are actually part of the team.
And what does your because you mentioned our generation, I would say, is not that much on certain channels. Other generations are on different channels. So, what do you have an idea of your ideal profile? What does it look like, or do you have several different profiles? So, how have you structured this analysis?
Yeah, it's beautiful because we are in the process of doing it. So now
Ah, nice.
you're living this with me. So I hope it
I
ages
love it.
well. I really hope it ages well. But basically, yeah, that's the case. I want to be able to connect with my community, to connect with people who is going to be speaking to, and not to, like to do crazy amounts of different accounts and websites and everything. So you need to have a very, very proper identity. And this is the most crucial thing to anyone who is actually creating a brand: is the identity, is the tone of voice, is your visuals and everything. And we're still not perfect at that. We're still working on that. But knowing that this is the goal and doing it ourselves on our scale, because we have a smaller scale, which once again gives us a little bit more of agility and easier to change things as it goes, but also it kind of requires for you to have more, to listen more to yourself, to the brand, to your customer. So here, once again, I think it's going to be a French account for our beautiful French community. And then probably it's going to be my brand ambassador account to talk a bit more about, our daily, challenges, and maybe something that we're planning to do, and really try to show behind the scenes and connect people with the brand. Probably for me, it's on Instagram, personally, on social media. But we should not forget, it's for different type of client or partner. It's going to be obviously a different tool and a different platform. But B2B, for example, it's incredibly important to be active in that sense on LinkedIn, because in that sense we are going to lots of different events worldwide. We have wine fairs in different corners of the world, and obviously we have Wine Paris, but then internationally you have the different importers that create those kind of events. We recently went to Tokyo. We're going to China soon. We were in Hong Kong during a wine trade. So there you need to be present. You need to be yourself, explaining the if B2C, they can connect to a brand identity and to kind of feeling of the brand. Obviously, B2B, they need to see you properly, and you need to create very long-term relations on a more of a personal note. And this is why it's also very important for us, because we need to understand who we are working with and whether our values actually align.
We'll go to B2B and B2C to B2B after. I just had a couple of other curiosities on what you said on the B2C side. The brand ambassador account, will it be in English or in French?
It would be in English, because that would be the one where I would want to connect people with the brand without having the possibility of them coming here, or if they do have the possibility of coming here, maybe, just staying connected with us.
And do you have some specific markets in mind to target it? Will it be European? Will it be towards, you mentioned Tokyo or other faraway markets? So what's the idea behind it?
I think it's very important not to tackle this in a way of geographical location, but in a way of understanding your market and people who you're speaking to. Because in any location, you can find, people who are passionate about the same things that you are, and you don't have to speak the same language to understand each other. So it's kind of what, I'm looking for. And for me, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll be completely honest with you, of course, it's the US, because once you try to speak some sort of language for, let's call it the old world, as a referral to the wine, the old world can laugh at you and be like, what are you talking about? Like, this is just words, And for instance, in the US market, it's actually all about the identity, the sense of the identity. So you create this emotion and this attraction through sharing things, through talking about things. And again, I'm in no way saying that, in Europe, we cannot be like that. People are like that just because they're more sensible to something intangible. But once again, it does have some kind of idea behind it that kind of more focused on the US market.
And what about TikTok?
Oof. TikTok. Well, one of the things that I forgot to mention, and it's actually quite important, and it's honestly one of the most important things I think for any alcohol beverage industry, are the restrictions on things that you can say, on things that you can do, because, if you say something, I don't know, like wine is going to make you happy, you can actually get a huge fine. And because you are trying to tell people to go and drink more, which is in no way we're trying to do that. The only thing that we're trying to do is create mindfulness about the consumption. But, this is something that is a very, very slippery slope. And this is something that you truly need to keep in mind. And, we are very conscious about that. We are very responsible about that. So, even on Instagram already, it's quite challenging. So, for example, if you're not a wine professional, you cannot be seen, with a glass of wine being happy, once again. Or you can just hold it, but you cannot drink it. So lots of different nuances that you need to keep in mind. But on TikTok, from what I know, we're just not allowed to have an account. Or we
Oh,
can have
wow. Okay.
or we can have an account, but we can only talk about visits, I guess, and visiting the winery. But anything where we actually are, selling the wine as a product, I think it's, if possible, just very, very challenging, or again, not possible.
Yeah, actually, Dolia's account was banned from TikTok because
Oh,
I
there
think
you
I
go.
don't I'm not sure why, but a lady I know who works at TikTok told me actually you are allowed to speak about alcohol. So I don't know. I haven't understood why they banned us. Now I created another one. I know no one listens from TikTok, and they still haven't banned us. So I will persevere
Oh,
on that.
yeah, you do that. Good luck. But I think once again, if you truly need to learn and understand all the restrictions, I guess you can find loopholes and you can go around it. But it's just like, once again, our idea is not to sell wine on social media. Our idea is to create awareness of the brand and to transmit like all the values that we have. So that's kind of what we're focusing on in our, we're not trying to get millions of followers, because we're not going to have enough wine to sell to them because we only have about 300,000 in stock right now, which is not a lot. So yeah, we're trying just to, for anyone curious coming to our page, being like, okay, that's great, I want to learn more.
Fantastic. And last point on the B2C side, we before this call, before we started the interview, we were speaking about wine clubs. You told me you are thinking about structuring one. So can you tell me a bit how this actually works and links with also with all the hospitality strategy you are structuring, all the social media strategy you are structuring. So where does the wine club stand in this whole communication ecosystem?
Of course. Yeah, it's still in process of the making. It's not ready yet, but I think it's a crucial part of brand building and brand awareness creation, because people need to have something to connect to and to belong to. Any sort of club, I'm actually, recently joined one of the private clubs in wine myself, not from a winery per se, but more of a global private wine club. And the second you walk in, you feel like you're understood. You feel like people know you, you know them. You don't have to know their names. You don't have to speak with them. You don't even have to know one single person in the club. You already feel a sense of belonging. So this is extremely crucial, because this is what we're all searching for. So this is one of the things why I definitely think that we need to create that. And for us, speaking from, more of a commercial standpoint, of course, it's a way of creating, repeated customers and customers for life, if you can say so. And this is our biggest goal, is to be able to create the community where people hear the name of Malherbe and they know, oh, this is a great wine. This is a great service. This is a great place where we can get into and always get a beautiful welcome and a beautiful experience.
Okay, now let's go to the B2B side, which we promised before. You of course said it's different from the B2C in terms of the channels you use. Of course, on the B2B you might communicate a bit more on LinkedIn, but in terms of how you reach people, because on the B2B side of wine, we have several stakeholders. I mean, we have distributors, we have importers, restaurants, sommeliers, whatever. So are you actually targeting these people through communication on social media, through direct communication? And how do you see the marketing activities you do are different from the B2C side? So how do you actually communicate differently with these people? And is it actually effective on social media to reach these people?
Actually, that's a great question, because I feel like once again, when we're talking about social media, we're only thinking about the direct, consumer and B2C, while actually you have professionals also using their personal accounts for their personal lives, but still being your direct target. So here, when we are on social media, of course, we still need to appeal to those kind of customers slash partners slash future potential collaborations. So we are right now focusing on that, and we're meeting people through, again, personal connections, through LinkedIn, through other clubs, social clubs. I am actually a part of a huge gastronomy association based in France, but they actually have 30,000 members all over the world, and those members, they love gastronomy, so a lot of them are hotel owners, restaurant owners, or just, food and wine enthusiasts. So through that you create links, and through that after that you meet sommeliers, you meet chefs, and then you can create beautiful collaborations with them, because wine and food, this is something that we also don't need to forget. The wine, it cannot just exist on its own. Wine is the atmosphere, wine is the people who drink, who you share it with, wine is the food that you have it with. And this is something that I think that people are missing and losing the connection. They just think that wine is alcohol. Alcohol is bad. We should not drink wine. And this is where we need to recreate the link, and to show that wine is a beautiful addition to your food if it's done properly. So we do a lot of collaborations with those sommeliers and with the chefs, and we post it online too. And after that, we can kind of, they have their own little world of sommeliers, and the chefs, they have their own little world. And we need to remember that they also do coexist, and they want and they seek those kind of collaborations too, because it makes them dream and makes them be able to experiment. So that's kind of what we do, and that's what we're planning to continue on doing.
And when you say collaborations in practice, because I spoke to one of the previous guests, and she was the marketing manager of a winery in Italy, and she told me if she had infinite budget for a campaign, she would invite other sommeliers from the restaurants she works with, to the winery to make them discover how they work, to tell them the story, to then also support them in telling the story to restaurant customers. So when you say doing these collaborations, what do you actually do? Is it something that stays on the digital space, or do you actually invite them to the winery and do some in-person activities?
Yeah. So, of course, first and foremost, it's always about the actual physical experience. You need to be there, you need to taste the food, they need to taste the wine. This is something non-negotiable. You need to meet up. So it's usually it could be us coming to their restaurant to understand and feel their, idea of and their vision, what they're doing, and their idea of the collaboration. So we would go to their restaurant and we will, maybe do like a little photo shoot, or we can actually taste their food. They can taste our wines and we can talk a bit more about what could be created. Same with sommeliers, we can go directly to them. And I think it's increasingly important to be able to stay mobile and to go and visit those people, to meet those people, because, you can invite them here and it's a beautiful thing to do. And we are planning to make a lot of events specifically for each category of clients so that they get familiar with the place itself, with our philosophy on site, but also meet other people in the industry and continue this beautiful, let's say this beautiful community going. It's important to create those links, to maintain them, to nurture them, because wine does not exist on its own. We all coexist in this world. And this is why, this works. This is why people connect to us, because they see that it's real, they see that it's alive, and they see how to properly enjoy it.
And I'm curious, since you actually started structuring a bit everything from scratch, I would say, when you started, how did you set up your sales and distribution channels? Do you have different importers in different countries? So how does it work?
Yeah, it was a journey. It still is.
Yeah.
It still is. We started producing the wine as you know it today in 2014, and then we decided to let the wine develop and grow and mature. So we only started selling in 2020. Obviously, we all remember what happened in 2020. We had COVID coming out of nowhere and changing everybody's plans. So, I mean, it didn't change our plans to start selling, but it definitely made it way more challenging and difficult to do. So when all the traditional ways of selling wine have closed, so you have restaurants that are closing down, any specialized shops are closing down, we only had supermarkets that were available. And we started doing that. We realized we already have quite a challenging product to sell because it was from a small appellation, it was on a higher price range than other producers in our appellation. We were a new product, not a huge star. We didn't have any celebrity coming in and supporting us. So being able to sell this product to a supermarket is a very challenging task, which we actually managed to do. And we opened a bunch of supermarkets all around France. But we quickly also realized that our wines, most of the wines from our collection, they're not really supermarket wines. Once again, because they don't fit the codes, they don't fit some kind of category. So when it doesn't fit for people, they are already confused. And when they're even more confused, they don't want it. They want something that they are feeling familiar about and that they feeling comfortable about. And it was definitely a way to start doing it, but I don't think it was our biggest hit. So today, obviously, with the other channels opening up, we can see that, we've opened sales in different countries such as Côte d'Ivoire. We're opening Chinese market, Japanese market right now, the Swiss market, and we continue, our researches. But as much as it is about finding any importer or any place to where you want to sell, for us, it's finding the right fit. Because if they are unable to understand the product and the vision behind it, there is no point of selling it to them, because they're not going to be able to sell it either. I guess the most important thing today for everyone is quick sales. And wine is not about that. Wine is about talking about it, enjoying it. Again, transferring the idea behind it. And, myself, I always come back to those times when I'm sitting and drinking with my father, and we cannot speak about anything else. We need to speak about wine. Because what's the point of opening a good bottle if you're not enjoying it properly? So it's kind of like, maybe it's a stretch, but I'm bringing it into, the sales too, because you're selling it to someone who just wants to find a quick fit. It's probably either a very identified bottle in terms of, positioning, because they're very expensive and famous, etc., or because they're cheap and easy to drink and easy to sell. Everything else is the connection that you create. Everything else is how well you've managed to transfer those emotions and visions behind your bottle to the person who's going to be reselling it after that.
And do you see any difference between all these countries we're working with? So you mentioned very different countries culturally. So do you see also differences in how you handle the relationships with importers, or on how they actually work with you?
100%, of course. I mean, it's I feel like in any kind of industry, it's just a different way of doing things. It's a different way of doing business. And I mean, obviously, I don't want to go into any kind of stereotypes, but different countries and different people work in a different way. What you can definitely see is that, in when I was in Japan, for instance, culturally speaking, people are incredibly respectful, very welcoming, and they really take their time to know about you. They really want to know your essence. They want to know more about you. And, in that sense, obviously, coming in as a brand like ours, this is all we need. This is what we want. And I mean, this is one of the things that really, really stroke me. Other than that, once again, about the UK and the US, in the UK, very difficult to enter the market because they're quite competitive. But at the same time, I think this is where the tradition and the codes, they really, 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 really go into place. So you need to represent something that the community there can appreciate. And then you need to find the person who can transfer this to that community. So, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's answering your question, but you can definitely see you need to find your own approach. But once again, I'm just going to repeat it. I'm a very global person, and I think it's not only about cultural things, but it's also about people's personalities and how they're able to stay open-minded, and whether they are ready and want to understand and be educated on the product.
Do you also sell in the US?
Not yet, not yet. This is actually what I am going through right now. I am searching an importer in the US. Once again, with today's turbulent times in every sense of that word, I think people are they're taking a step back, and they're definitely trying to evaluate and understand what's the future of any sort of collaboration. But I think it definitely would eliminate any sort of collaboration based on, I don't even know how to put it properly. I think it would rather create and focus on long term and very specific and meaningful relationships that they can see the future of and that they can grow with. Anything that is based on something more, let's say, abstract or nothing, without any foundation, it's probably going to be gone.
Are you seeing any impact of like all the tariff situation, and are you actually worried about it since you're looking for an importer?
I mean, today, obviously, tariffs is a huge question for everyone, and you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So I think it's definitely gonna raise some questions. It's definitely gonna raise some uncertainty. But once again, I think that on our scale, we can definitely find an importer that we could create a long-term partnership and be protected on both sides if, something doesn't work out.
We touched upon, I think, some of the most, I would say, the biggest buzzwords I see in the market today. I mean, on social media, it's all tariffs, it's all new export markets. And there's one actually that is quite strong because we are into it, which is the no and low alcohol, let's say trend. It's not maybe trend is not the right word. So there's the dry January. I think is the dry January this year is the one that got the most resonance on social media. I think I saw a lot of posts, a lot of things, a lot of articles. As a producer, as a young producer, what do you think about it? Do you think maybe it makes sense to also explore it as a producer, to maybe in your portfolio have a no alcohol wine? So what are your views on this? Let's call it trend. I know it's not a trend, but let's call it trend. And how do you plan on actually, if you plan on actually tackling it?
It's interesting that you're saying that it's not a trend and that you're repeating that. But because for me, I mean, everything in our world is a trend. We have trends. We have trends in wine, and that's completely fine. You will have people who would want to drink. We can see this. There was a boom of rosé, and when people were selling rosé, everything from the shelves, let's go. Everyone is drinking rosé. Right now, it's going to be more, white wine is going to take place. After that, reds right now, heavy reds, not popular whatsoever, but it's going to come back too. But obviously, trends are affected by lots of different things. But in terms of alcohol and low alcohol, no alcohol, I mean, all of that, we have started to see. I think in 2021, this is when it started to become a thing. And then in 2022, it started to truly, take even more attention in our industry. For me personally, it really depends how you position it. For me, no alcohol wine is not a wine. It's a new beverage and it's a different beverage. And I just don't think that it should be called wine. What's the point of calling it wine? I don't really see any reason behind it. Low alcohol wines is also a different thing because why are they low alcohol? So it's either you specifically took the alcohol out of it, which again, something that goes kind of against our philosophy and my philosophy. You create a product and then you come in to do even more mechanical stuff to it in order to take something out to make it better for you. So for me, it doesn't really, click. But also you can have another way of making the low alcohol wine, and you can do an early harvest. But if you do an early harvest, it's basically your berry has maybe not enough sugars, it's not mature, it has higher acidity, and then has risk of phenolic immaturity. This is when, the skins, the seeds, the tannins, they're not fully developed. So then after that, you have the problem of the taste balance. Is it going to be just not good, basically? Is it not going to be... So for me, it's like, why not create the best product you can have with the natural level of alcohol and just enjoy it in moderation rather than drinking products that are even worse for you because they have crazy amounts of sugars. So I think it's honestly for everyone, for each their own. If people choose to do it for any sort of reason, that's completely fine. I think that for some regions, it's way easier to do that than for others. I have not yet tried a good red zero alcohol wine, but I have tried a decent sparkling wine.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So you think it's going away?
I think it's just gonna be its own. I think it's gonna
Okay.
be its own market, it's gonna be its own thing. And I just think in wine, it also came into, the time when the proper crisis hit. So everyone was trying to understand, okay, so what do we do? How do we change? What do we change? How do we come back? How do we become popular? And I think that people are missing the fact that it's not only about alcohol content. It's not only about, I don't know, popularity within some generations or not. I think it's accumulation of all different factors that you need to take into mind. But it's not only alcohol.
And do you think this is driven? I mean, I think we are almost part of it. So do you think this is driven by the Gen Z and general younger generations? This kind of deconsumption and shift towards lower alcohol, some say healthier alternatives for some reason. So do you think it's the young generations, or do you think it's a wider phenomenon?
I think that generations for sure they play a role here. If you look at boomers, you look at millennials, you look at Gen Z, all of us have a completely different way of consuming things. Even information, consuming food, consuming whatever you want, it's completely different. If you're looking at boomers, they have a completely different way of drinking, consuming wine. They're more open to it. They're more open to drink more, maybe they're more open to the traditions and taking their time, enjoying the product, etc. For millennials, we're drinking less, but we are drinking better quality. So we want to actually have a meaning behind a bottle. We want to have aesthetics. We want to understand this whole thing is about. I want to know what I'm drinking. And for Gen Z, I think of course, they're drinking a bit less. I think they're more open to, again, new products that are coming onto the market. Also, for instance, I think a lot of Gen Zs, they have a fear of being stupid about something. I feel that they are curious, but they want to receive the information, they want to get it, they want to know it, they want to feel it, and that's it. Wine is about, time, taking time, going out, trying things out, being open and making mistakes. Maybe you're gonna get a bad bottle, maybe you're gonna, and I think Gen Z is like, as soon as they're gonna get the bad bottle, they're gonna be like, oh no, I hate wine. I just hate wine. I don't like wine. And I have a little sister. That's why I can like do it well. I can like tell you all about Gen Zs. So yeah, I think it's partly because of that and healthier lifestyle. But people, because we want to consume, we forget that we can consume mindfully, and it's actually going to be better for us.
That's true. So I will go towards the conclusion of the interview. We have this final section, which I call Quickfire, which means I will ask you some questions, and I would like you to answer in as few sentences as possible. So it will be like a really quick exchange, and so yeah, just to close it up and summarize everything. So the first one would be if you could give three suggestions, three advices to a young person who is, let's say, launching their own wine brand, or they just acquired the land and they want to start a wine brand. So, from your experiences, three things they need to do when they start.
Oh, wow.
Don't do it is not a valid advice.
No, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Don't treat wine as just one product. Wine is everything that links to it. Wine is people, human connections, food, nature, all of it. Just look at it in a broader sense. It's not just, a liquid in a glass. The second thing, stay strong. Because it's gonna challenge you. It's gonna challenge you in lots of different ways. It's gonna show you that you don't know a bunch of things, and it's a process of learning and opening up. And so I guess the third advice, stay open-minded and stay agile and never lose this passion that you have, because if you've entered the world of wine, you do have this passion. just grow on it and cultivate it and find like-minded people and just, don't be afraid to ask questions and learn more on it.
So if January 2036, so 10 years from today, what's happened to Malherbe and in general to the wine market?
Malherbe is a fully open wine tourism project. You have the hotel, the restaurant, beautiful winery, brand recognition, a beautiful local community and international community. The wines are getting better and better every year. And world of wine, the market is a bit more polarized, I think. It's gonna be when commodity wines, they're gonna struggle, but wines with bigger, like brand identities, they're gonna come out first and they're gonna thrive.
Complete this sentence. The wine industry would work much better if it stopped.
Probably to actually summarize all of things that I said, if it stopped making wine feel intimidating. If the wine became something that people are ready and not afraid to connect to, I think our industry would actually revolutionize.
And the last one, but you can't answer one of yours to this one. And actually, it's a question I ask for myself because then I know I have some more choices when I have to choose a new wine. Which is your favorite wine?
If I could say Château de Malherbes, I would, but I'm also a very open-minded drinker in that sense. I'm not a very conservative person in terms of taste. I don't really like to eat the same thing every day, so I think the same goes for me in wine. So today I'm really into the wines of Côte d'Ivoire and then also Mendoza wines. So they're completely different regions and different wines, but I appreciate both for a different reason.
Julia, this was a truly great interview. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure sharing everything that I know that I've learned so far, and it's a beautiful journey, so it's a privilege to be able to speak about it.